So a while back I watched It Follows and I've been meaning to do a review on it. But why didn't I? I'll get to that at the end of this video. So It Follows. Is it a good movie? Yes, it really is. And it's one of the better horror movies that came out recently. One of the things that I really appreciate with this movie is that it's low budget, but it still has a lot of effort put in it. And for this review, I'm going to start using a new rating system that I made by myself because I felt my previous reviews for shows or movies weren't very good or organized, and they felt really rushed, and I didn't want my work to look so sloppy. So here we go. We'll start with the acting. How's the acting in this movie? It ranged between average and good. No one felt like they did a terrible job, and none of them felt like they were extremely good actors. They were all pretty good, they did what they have to do, and you bought it. So let's get with the premise. What's the premise of this movie? The premise is about a woman named Jay, and she has a boyfriend. She eventually sleeps with him, and then it is revealed that the boyfriend passed on this creature that follows. So for the rest of the movie, she has to pretty much survive. Alright, so let's get into the characters now. The main character is Jay Height. Height. That's a weird last name. And she is likable. She's a likable character. She's not a brat. She's not annoying. She's not over dramatic. She's a likable character, and you buy her as being a teenager. And then you got her friends, all portrayed very well. One of the good things about the characters in this film is that it never felt like any of the characters were bringing the story or the movie down. They all did their parts well, and overall, there didn't really seem to be any useless characters. I also like the fact that they're all just normal teenagers. They don't really do drugs, they don't really drink, they're not stupid, they don't go to parties, they're pretty much just the average teenager and not overly exaggerated like in most films and in most horror movies. So how about the originality of this movie? Well, the fact that it was very reminiscent of retro slasher films. There's not much originality, but the creature is pretty original as far as I know. The creature pretty much just follows you, and it only walks, and it walks slowly. The characters were not very new, they were pretty standard characters, but it's still a pretty good movie. So what's good about this movie? Well, for one, the soundtrack is very good. You can hear how it's paying homage to old slasher themes. You can hear Nightmare on Elm Street, and you can hear Halloween. The soundtrack is definitely one of the best things about this movie. Normally, I never really pay attention to the soundtrack because it never really stands out. But if I'm talking about the soundtrack, then you know the soundtrack is pretty good because, again, I normally never pay attention. But if it stands out enough, then I will mention it. Now, I'm about to get into some spoilers, and if you really want nothing ruined for you for this movie, then go watch it, because it's a pretty good movie. Okay, so what I also liked about this movie was the fact that the creature really was just a metaphor for AIDS, or any other STI. I mean, I'm not gonna act like I didn't laugh. I did pretty much laugh when I realized that this is pretty much a metaphor for AIDS or STIs. The special effects were also pretty good, especially for a low-budget film. You would think that they try to keep all the effects to a minimum and maybe try to not show too much of it because of the budget. But surprisingly, the effects were great. They're not groundbreaking, but they're pretty good for a low-budget film. Now let's get to what is bad with this movie, what I didn't like. Now, if you think I'm overpraising this movie, then this is when you realize you're wrong, because I'm going to talk about what's bad about this movie. Because I am in no way saying that this is a perfect movie. It isn't. It has its flaws like most other movies. So there were times when some things that were seen did not really make sense. It was explained how this creature always walks, but sometimes it does things that didn't really make sense. At one point, it was on top of a house. It never said it could teleport, and never said it could climb. It was just said that it can only walk. So seeing it on the roof was very weird and very out of place. A giant drawback of this movie was the rules and how much they contradict themselves, how convoluted the rules felt. It was told that to get rid of this thing, you pretty much have to pass it on. Okay. It was said that if the person you pass it on to gets killed by this thing, it goes down the line from who passed it to who. Okay. After many attempts of killing this thing by shooting it or trying to electrocute it or anything of the sorts, it seemed to not affect it. But at the end, they shot it in the head and it looked like it died. That was very confusing. They've shot it before. It just didn't make sense. What's also bad with this movie is how the rules sometimes aren't explained. I'll give some examples. It is said that if it was passed on to you and then it kills you, then it'll move down the line. But what if you die something that's unrelated to the actual creature? It would pretty much be assumed that it goes down the line, but it's never explained. What's also never explained is what part of the sex act transfers the creature to the next person. Is it as soon as you start? Is it as soon as you finish? What if you didn't go all the way? What if you did it with multiple people at the same time? Some of this stuff was never really explained. And it just really didn't add up because we were so distracted from trying to come up with the answers. And that's one of the bad parts about the movie. After it's implied that they kill it, it's also implied that it might not be dead yet. But here's the thing. There's a difference between giving the audience the want to know more than the audience needing to know more. And unfortunately, this movie falls under the second one. If memory serves, it was said that you can't kill this thing. But again, it was implied that it did die, but it was implied that it didn't die. But when they shot it in the head and it was implied that it died, it didn't walk, it didn't move, and it did seem dead. But that still doesn't really make sense. Again, when they shot at it earlier and not in the head, it just seemed to shrug it off and keep on walking. It just gets kind of confusing sometimes. What's also bad about this movie is a specific scene in the movie. After Jay gets into a car accident and she's in a hospital, she decides to give the creature to her friend, which he agreed on, and he did it to pretty much protect her and give her some time and pretty much try to take this thing on himself. Okay. But when it's seen that it's going into his house and it's waiting by the door, Jay sees this and goes after it and also enters his house, and he's screaming through the door from the hallway to not open it because the creature is right there. I don't remember if he had headphones, but I think he did. But I'm sure he took them off if he did have headphones, and he should have heard her screaming, telling him not to open the door and that the creature's right there. But for plot's sake, he opens the door and he gets killed in one of the most weirdest ways I've ever seen. I mean, they were trying to go for a serious tone with the death, but the way this thing kills was so weird and kind of laughable. It kind of shifted the tone for me, but I could have kind of passed over that, but it just distracted me for a few minutes. Alright, now for the rating system. Now I'll briefly explain my new rating system. It ranges from must watch, which means I highly recommend you watch this movie, to watch it if you want, which means if you're interested in the movie, then go ahead and watch it. The next is a fluff movie, which means that you really shouldn't go out of your way to watch it. Just watch it if you have nothing better to watch and it's on TV and you're just flipping through the channels. And then it moves on to don't watch, which means pretty much try to stay away from this movie. And then it leads to never mention it again, which means to pretend it doesn't exist. So what do I give this movie? I give this a watch it if you want. It's a pretty good movie, but I can see that some people might not enjoy this movie. So yeah, watch it if you want. Doesn't matter. Okay, so now for the channel update. Why haven't I been uploading? Well, I've been trying to figure out how this new editing software I'm using works. I'm also going to try to upload as many videos as I can because I don't know how my full-fledged review of a movie will take. I don't know how long it'll take, so that's why I want to try to upload as much as possible. If you don't know what I mean by full-fledged review, it pretty much means that I'm going to be stopping lazy and actually show scenes from the movie and walk through what's bad about the movie and put actual scenes from the movie and review it like that instead of showing trailers or just the pictures like I normally do. And I don't really want to give away what movie I'm going to review. I mean, I'm not going to drop any hints or anything, but yeah, I think it'll be good. So that's it for this video. Like, subscribe if you want, I guess. And thank you for watching my video. And I'll see you in the next one.